In this week's episode, I'm joined by Katherine Longhi, she, her, inclusive culture consultant at Limitless Possibility and author of The Inclusion Illusion, an HR guide to educating execs on DEI. This week, our conversation is about Starbucks serving up parental leave perks, justice literally taking the stage, Walmart's game-changing visual interpretation initiative, and more. Hey there, my name is Bernadette Smith, and I'm a keynote speaker and writer. My pronouns are she and her. Welcome to 5 Things in 15 Minutes, my weekly show where I bring good vibes to DEI. That is good vibes to diversity, equity, and inclusion with a little dash of corporate social responsibility. What I found is there are lots of news stories about what's going wrong in the world and lots of negative data. But there are also a lot of things going right. That's what I like to focus on. I search for stories that we can be inspired by and learn from. My hope is to inspire you to experiment with some of these actions and policies to help you build a more inclusive world. Let's get started. Welcome to the show, Katherine. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's a real honor to be here. And you're first for the new year.
Yes, Happy New Year. Yes. Would you mind telling folks a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I'm Katherine Longhi, an inclusive and culture consultant, as Bernadette shared. Pronouns she and her. I am based out of the UK and Italy, and I help large multinational corporations who are headquartered in and around Europe to really up level their DEI games. And I do that in a variety of different ways, predominantly in partnership with the HR community and employee resource groups to really activate the full potential of the organization for DEI, and with those groups forming partnerships with the senior leadership. So my work is really focused on building relationships and fostering, developing, growing those relationships so that everyone is on the same page around DEI when it is so easy to be not on the same page about it.
Yeah, I think, and the relationships are so important. And I think part of that means we need to help folks find their individual sort of story and how to be a change maker and an influencer about this. That's so important. Can you talk a little bit about your book?
Yes. So the Inclusion Illusion was born last year specifically for HR professionals to help them talk about this stuff with their senior leadership, to help them educate their senior leadership, and to really grow and develop themselves as change makers. Because oftentimes HR is the sort of what I would call dumping ground of employee complaints and everyone's, headache and heartache and problems. And so because it really, in my opinion, is the soul of the organization, or has the potential to really nurture the soul of the organization, I wanted to offer something to HR people who are really struggling to elevate DEI in the organization and to educate the people that they need to in order to do that.
Well, and for so many organizations or for so many HR professionals, they had no responsibility or not much responsibility for DEI prior to 2020. So for a lot of people, it was sort of thrust upon them and without really the skills to know how to even lead these initiatives.
Yeah, so definitely the skill level, there was something about skill, like it's an HR discipline DEI, and previously had been in the incarnation of, let's say, discrimination and the legal frameworks and preventing risk to the company. But then when it became, hold on, this is a value add function, but also we can't ignore the societal, the Black Lives Matters movement, the Me Too. We can't ignore the societal changes that are happening that impact our organizations.
Absolutely. I think it matters so much. And at the same time, I also think that it's really important that DEI not live exclusively in HR, because it needs to be a holistic approach in order to really see those benefits and those rewards we hear about when we hear about all the the business case for diversity. Well, in order to really achieve that, it has to be holistic, not just in HR.
And the theory has to be applied in a practical and appropriate way and measured and iterated, which, there's a lot of fancy articles coming out of Harvard Business Review and McKinsey and all these great institutions, but unless you're going to actually test drive them and put them to the test, it can also just become a hypothetical debate.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think so many people are afraid of getting it wrong, right? They're afraid of getting it wrong because of this cancel culture that we've gotten ourselves into. And I think that it's become kind of almost easier to avoid in some ways than to approach head on because of those fears.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in this week's 5 Things newsletter, I wrote a little bit about my family's New Year's Eve tradition, in which we take a paper lantern and each of us writes something we want to release from the previous year on the lantern. So, the kids write some things, Heather and I write some things, and then we go out at night and walk outside, try to avoid trees, and light the lantern and send it off into the sky to basically have a ritual around letting go of things from the previous year that no longer serve us. And, one of the things I wrote that I wanted to let go of is any resistance I have to playing small. Because when you're an entrepreneur, it can be easy to hide. And believe it or not, I do play small sometimes, even though it might not look that way. And so my New Year's resolution, or my commitment, my word of the year, is really to shine more, which involves making it easier for all of you to be more inclusive of everyone. And I think that the world needs us. I mean, it's bleak right now. I think the world needs us all to shine bright, to choose our authenticity, to choose connection. And I know it can be hard, but I think I just want to encourage everyone to make sure they shine this year and to choose the connections that lead us to joy and the ability to be our authentic selves, even at work. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I love that ritual, Bernadette. And as I was reading about your ritual, I did my own kind of virtual, virtual. I'm like, what would I do? What would I have written on the what can I release into the world? And for me, what I in my head wrote on my lantern and released was being scattered, like being all over the place, like being just taking every opportunity, like saying yes to everything and spreading myself thin and not really having a like focused approach. And so that inspired me for 2025, and the word that came to me as my theme for 2025 is actually discipline, which is not a word I would have ever come up with in any of the previous years for the last decade that I've been doing this ritual. And then I really thought about it. And in terms of what's happening in the backlash against DEI that's becoming even more intense than it already was, I thought, no, we're in order to continue to grow, we have to go a little bit, we have to like regroup, reorganize to move forward better together in a more focused way. So let's shine. Let's be disciplined to shine, shall we?
That's right. Because it can be so easy to hide, we have to be disciplined to shine. I think so. It makes complete sense. All right, well, let's get into this week's good vibes. The first story this week is from Starbucks, which is expanding paid parental leave for in-store workers, which means that birth parents can get 18 weeks at full pay and non-birth parents 12 weeks at full pay. And this goes up from the previous 6 weeks of paid leave. I think this is super important for frontline employees, Katherine, because they hardly ever get any sort of parental benefits. This is massive.
I was actually shocked when I read this because Starbucks aren't famous. Well, first of all, the retail sector isn't famous, and neither is Starbucks famous for having family-friendly benefits. So I'm probably still in shock and haven't really fully, processed how big this is. But what I would say for every company that I have seen level up their parental and maybe even make their parental benefits more equal or more equitable is that it's a real game changer for gender equity,
Mm.
not just in the workplace, but also at home. I mean, it really sends a whole spark through the system to have mothers, fathers, whether you're two mothers and two fathers, or you're a single father or a single, like, you know,
All
it
parents.
really makes a massive difference.
It does, and these are folks who might not have college degrees. They're folks that might be more likely to be people of color, less access, and so this is really a game changer for them. And it might mean that they don't have to make hard choices about working two jobs or keeping the child. Things like that. These are hard decisions that folks are going through, and this can really make a big difference. All right, the second story this week. I love this story, so make sure you watch the video in the show notes. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson fulfilled a lifelong dream with a cameo in Broadway's musical And Juliet. So this meant that she was the first Black female Supreme Court justice on a Broadway stage, which is amazing. And it's a really cute little video. It's a short cameo performance. And I love it. I love that she manifested this for herself. She put it in the book, in her memoir, and it came true. And what a sweet story. Just make sure you check out the video.
Yeah. I love seeing women make firsts. Like anytime a woman makes a first, it's amazing. And the fact that it's the second woman female Supreme Court justice to go on Broadway and it's the first Black woman, it's just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I think the arts are something, the arts really feed our souls as humanity. So to have someone who's in such a high powered position in government,
Mm-hmm.
to have the time, like, it's not that she had the time, but I mean, she's really busy, but that she dedicated herself to making that happen, which was a real personal mission. I mean, maybe even bigger than becoming a Supreme Court justice. um, it just really can inspire. If she can do it, we all can do it. Like, just
Absolutely.
keep following Justice Jackson.
I believe it's never too late. Never too late for anything. So off we go. All right, good vibes for the new year. Okay, the third story this week comes from Walmart, which has recently pulled back from some DEI commitments, but it's partnering with ARA to provide free visual interpretation services for customers with disabilities. So through this app, individuals with disabilities can connect with trained interpreters to assist with navigation, signage, and product details within the Walmart store. So they can use the app to help them shop independently by having basically a live interpreter on the other side of the app. So I think this is fantastic, and it complements Walmart's sensory-friendly hours, adaptive product lines, and this Caroline's cart, which I wrote about in 5 Things last year. It's a new shopping cart. So, I have a lot of mixed feelings about Walmart. This is pretty great.
I think this is the best thing Walmart's ever done,
They have
ever.
free college tuition too. I mean, they do a lot for their employees, actually.
Okay, maybe second best thing they've ever done. Again, the retail sector. So
Yeah.
again, a sector that's not necessarily friendly to
Hmm.
employees or customers,
Yeah.
not particularly high end, and in fact, probably the most vulnerable people
Hmm.
shop at Walmart. Not
Hmm.
just people with disabilities, but
Hmm.
low income,
Hmm.
maybe homeless, like lots of challenges. And this one is so specific as well. So I'm suspecting they must have had some feedback, or someone went, oh my gosh, we're missing the market of people who have disabilities. Like, we are missing an entire market. Anyway, whatever the logic was, it's fantastic. Would love to see other retailers adopting the same approach.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's good for everyone. It's certainly, here we are talking about it, so it's good for PR. Let's be honest. It's certainly good for their visually impaired customers, and it's probably not costing them a whole lot. I would imagine that. Well, whatever. Maybe it is. I don't know, but I think I love a good win-win. All right. The fourth story this week is about employer divorce benefits. So I've actually talked a little bit about divorce on the show last year because we had a guest who wrote a book about gay divorce. I myself have been through my own divorce. And so it's so important to think about divorce benefits. And so this story is about how employers have realized that divorce can lead to reduced focus, lower productivity, increased stress. And companies like Hearst are using products like Hello Divorce and Farewell, which are for navigating legal, financial, and emotional complexities, including challenging co-parent responsibilities. So this is really all about reducing the stigma of divorce, fostering inclusion, and just reducing some of the stress. It is stressful.
Yeah, this is a major step forward for well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Divorce, I think divorce pretty much affects everyone. Like, even if divorce rates are 50%, I mean, they're more than half, I think, at this stage, which basically means even if you personally have not gotten divorced, you have been affected by one. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say this affects most people,
Mm-hmm.
and has been a previously stigmatized group. But I think this helps both normalize it's just another thing that happens in life, but also gives that support that's so important so that employees don't feel like, oh, I can't talk about it. Oh, I'm the weird one, oh, poor me. I'm bad, the shame spiral, and then all of the sort of behavioral complexities that come up in the workplace that colleagues might be like, we don't know how to deal with this.
Yeah.
So I think this kind of benefit is a real great addition. I think every company should be doing it.
Absolutely. I mean, because the amount of distraction that it can bring is significant. It can be very, very tough. I agree. Okay, the last story this week comes from Hasbro, which has a new event called the Hasbro Women Innovators of Play. Now, women only accounted for a little bit less than 11% of US patents in 2022. And this new Hasbro initiative is aiming to increase that by fostering creativity with challenges, mentorship, and cash prizes, and the Women's Inventor Toy Challenge to give an opportunity for women inventors to thrive. So investing in gender disparities.
Yeah, this one was really close to heart for me because I first learned about gender difference through toys, as many of us do.
Mm.
In that, when I used to go visit my great grandmother as an 8-year-old, and my younger brother was a 5-year-old, she would always give us two presents each, a Barbie and a G.I. Joe, or something like feminine and something masculine. So I actually, my earliest experiences of like, wait, what gender? Huh? There's a difference. And that my great grandmother was trying to educate us like boys and girls can both play with boys and girls toys. I mean, she was really ahead of herself in the 80s.
Yeah.
And the fact that so few women hold patents when it's already been decades that toy retailers get that both markets, the boy market and the girl market, are important, was
Hmm.
just crazy to me. So it's so important for companies like Hasbro to be encouraging and systematically including more female invention in our inventions, especially with toys.
Because it's
Crazy.
not happening by accident, right? So there needs to be a targeted approach. I mean, none of these things happen by accident. They start with conversations and demand and listening to your customers and your employees and then being really intentional about it. So, I love that. Yeah. I mean, all kids of all genders should be allowed to play with all toys. But the disparity in women inventors is, I had no idea. So, I learn something every day when I do this work.
Amazing.
Katherine, it has been an absolute delight having you on the show. So let's move into the last segment of the show, Good Vibes to Go. I'm going to share my own good vibe to go, and then I'll invite you to share your good vibe to go. So I recently listened to a short segment on National Public Radio about President Jimmy Carter's legacy of advancing progress for Black women, some amazing appointments he made, opportunities he created, and he really set forth a pathway that has allowed a lot more Black women to advance in government. So really short story. I was personally inspired by his legacy. What a great human, and may he rest in peace. And may his memory be a blessing. So Katherine, what is your own good vibe to go?
Yeah, mine is actually a little unusual. My good vibe to go is an invitation to discomfort. So, what's so great about this show is that it's uplifting and points to the positive changes that are happening. But here's the thing, the positive changes don't happen by us feeling inspired. We have to do something with that inspiration. We need to take an action. And one of the things I challenged myself last year as a DEI consultant, you might think, oh, you know a lot about DEI. But DEI is this massive, there are so many different kinds of people and so many different kinds of DEI initiatives. And one of the areas that I felt really uncomfortable with was actually in racial and ethnic and in ethnicity. I felt really it was like a blind spot for me, my whiteness and my white privilege. And so I read this book, Everything You Already Know About Your Own Racism and How to Do Better by Regina Jackson and Saira Rao. And it was a total game changer. Let me be honest, it was rather hard reading, but I've read it 3 times. It was so good. So my good vibe to go is go find a lesser good vibe.
Sure.
And educate yourself around it and take an action.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll make sure that gets in the show notes. Thank you for sharing. And Katherine, can you tell folks how they can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I think there's only 3 Katherine Longhis with my spelling. I'm the one in the United Kingdom. Come connect with me. Would love to chat. You can get a free digital copy of my book on a button somewhere on my profile page. So connect in whatever way you feel called to connect in, and look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for being a guest today. Folks, if you don't already get the 5 Things newsletter, you can subscribe at 5thingsdei.com. Happy New Year. Thank you for listening to 5 Things in 15 Minutes. I hope you found yourself inspired by at least one of this week's stories. If you did, would you mind sharing it with a colleague and leaving us a review on your favorite podcasting platform? And if you don't already get my 5 Things newsletter, join at 5thingsdei.com. I'm Bernadette Smith, and I'll see you next week right here for 5 Things in 15 Minutes, bringing good vibes to DEI.